First, evaluate expressions inside grouping symbols. Grouping symbols include things such as parentheses, brackets, and braces. So parentheses look like this, brackets, and braces. These are all grouping symbols, and we're going to eliminate those first. Once that's done, we go through the equation and evaluate powers. So if I have 3 squared, I'm going to turn that into 9 before I go on. After I've removed my parentheses and other grouping symbols and evaluated the powers, I'm going to go through and multiply and divide from left to right. And you start out from the left, and if you hit a division operation first, do that. Then go on, maybe you'll see some multiplication, then another multiplication. So either one that you hit first, going from left to right, handle that. After that, my next step is to add and subtract, again from left to right. So I start at the left side of the equation. If I have something to subtract, I do it. Go through, add, and on through until I have my results. So eliminate grouping symbols, evaluate powers, multiply and divide proceeding from left to right, add and subtract from left to right. One note, a fraction bar can actually function as a grouping symbol. For example, I could have the expression 2 times 5 plus 4 minus 5 squared divided by 4 minus 3 plus 7 squared plus 9. In this case, this fraction bar is a grouping symbol. What it's doing is separating the numerator from the denominator. And it's telling me that I need to handle the numerator, get a result for that, then I need to find the result for the denominator separately. Once I have those results, then I'm going to divide by whatever it is I've found in the numerator and divide that by the result in the denominator. So a fraction bar can act as a grouping symbol like parentheses. Applying this to our first example. Remember, my first step is to evaluate or solve inside the grouping symbols. Well, I look through here and I don't have any grouping symbols, so I move on to the next step. Remember that the next step is to evaluate powers. Beginning over here on the left, 12 minus 3, and I have a power. I have 2 cubed. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, plus 9 squared. So it's simply 9 times 9, which is 81, times 4 minus 18 divided by 3. I look through, I've evaluated all the powers. Now I'm going to multiply and divide from left to right. So we begin on the left side of the equation. 12 minus 3 times 8 is 24. Okay. I proceed along from left to right. 12 minus 24. Now it's going to be plus 81 times 4. 81 times 4 is actually 324 minus 18 divided by 3. All I have left to get rid of in terms of multiplication or division is the 18 divided by 3. And that's 6, negative 6. Okay, I'm down to my fourth step, which is add and subtract from left to right. Starting at the left, 12 minus 24 is negative 12, plus 324 minus 6. So 324 minus 12 gives me 312 minus 6. And the result is 306. So I went in order, following the rules for order of operations, no grouping symbols. So I went back and I evaluated my powers. And I had 2 powers, which is 2 cubed and 9 squared. And I eliminated those, so I solved those. Then I went down, proceeding from left to right, and solved all the multiplication and division that I had. Once I was left with only addition and subtraction, I went back to the beginning, to the left side of the equation, went through, to the left side of the expression, went through, solved, adding and subtracting, 6. Applying this to another example. This time, we do have grouping symbols. We have parentheses and brackets. When I have brackets and then I have parentheses inside, I'm going to work on the inner set of grouping symbols first. I'm going to evaluate my power first because it's following order of operations. Then I look inside the parentheses and all I have left to do is to subtract. And that's going to be simply 7. So I eliminated those parentheses, minus 6 times 3. Okay, I got rid of my parentheses, but I still have some brackets here that I have to get rid of. I look inside the brackets and I see I have no powers. I do have multiplication. So I'm going to get 7 minus 18. Now all I have left is subtraction. Okay, looking at what I have left, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the equation and see that I can't do anything further here. I'm down to negative 11. I can eliminate those brackets, actually, and then I look from left to right and see that I do have some division. So multiply and divide from left to right. Okay, so I have 4, and then I have plus negative 11 divided by 11. So that would be 4 plus negative 1, or more simply, 4 minus 1. Finally, I'm going to add or subtract. Okay, so 4 minus 1, that gives me 3. I would actually evaluate powers, if there are powers, for that second step. Okay, so first I eliminated my grouping symbols, which did require me to evaluate powers, divide or multiply, subtract. So I took care of that until all I had was negative 11, and then I went back and I divided, subtracted, and came up with 3. And if I had approached this a different way, if I'd done this in a different order, I probably would have come up with a different answer. In our third example, we have a fraction bar as a grouping symbol. It's separating the numerator from the denominator. Handling my grouping symbol first. The way I'm going to handle this is to evaluate my numerator, then evaluate my denominator, and then I'm going to divide the numerator by the denominator. Using my typical order of operations on the numerator, I don't have any grouping symbols within that numerator, but I do have a power. This becomes 3 plus 4 times 6 minus 25. Multiply and divide from left to right. So my denominator is just staying the same. Now I'm going to multiply 4 times 6, so that's going to give me 24, minus 25, still no change on that denominator because I'm handling it separately. So now I have 3 plus 24 minus 25. That becomes, going from left to right, 27 minus 25. Okay. Now, that's simple. 27 minus 25 is simply 2. Okay, so here I handled the numerator. So moving over here, I'm going to work on the denominator. And I have 2 divided by 4 times 3 plus 7 divided by 4. And don't forget the fourth step, add and subtract, again, from left to right. Okay, I need to remove the parentheses first. 2 divided by 4, and that becomes 3 plus 7 becomes 10. Going on, I have some multiplication and division. So it's 40 divided by 4, or 2 divided by 10. So you see what I did is I got my result in my numerator, which is 2, and then I got the result in the denominator, which is 10. Our fourth example is a little bit different because we see some variables. However, they actually give you the value for each variable. They're telling me to assume that x is equal to -3, y is equal to 4, and z is equal to 3. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute in. Every time I see an x, I'm going to simply substitute -3. And that's going to give me -3 squared minus 3. If I have a y, then I'm going to put in 4. So it's 4 squared plus, and instead of z, I'm going to substitute in a 3. So 2 times 3. Now I can go ahead and follow my usual order of operations. First, eliminate grouping symbols. So I go inside these parentheses, and I'm going to evaluate the power. After I've eliminated the power inside the parentheses, I can go ahead and multiply or divide, and I do have some multiplication that needs to be done. And let's see, almost done with the parentheses. What I'm going to do next is simply add, and that's going to give me 22. Okay, so I got rid of that set of parentheses, so I'm going to look at what I have next. And if you need to jot this down until you have it committed to memory, then do so, but you need to get these rules down committed to memory because you're going to use them constantly. So I did my grouping symbols. Now I'm looking at powers, and I do have a power. -3 squared is -3 times 3, and that's 9. Multiply and divide. I do have some multiplication. And finally, add and subtract. And 9 minus 66 is -57. Again, the first thing I had to do here was substitute in the values for the variables. Then I had to eliminate my parentheses, evaluate a power, multiply, subtract to get -57.